Welcome back. It is the Built by Vitality podcast. I am Steve Pinkerton, sitting next to
Amy Holland
and
Philip Lewis.
All right, so this is off to a good start. On today's episode, we are going to talk about almost 1,000 PT sessions that Amy Holland did throughout 2021. And we're going to talk about burnout. We're going to talk about inappropriate comments. We're going to talk about everything Amy Holland related, which we only have about 40 minutes. So we're going to have to condense it down. She actually, as I was in class yesterday, she only made 2 inappropriate comments, which if you said, what is the over under of how many comments Amy's going to make in a 60-minute class, I would probably say 3 would be my number. Like it's going to be somewhere around 3, you know?
I'll say 7 or 8.
You should probably let all the viewers know I had no clue what the topic was coming into this today.
That's the best. That's kind of how we roll. I didn't want Amy to have to, be prepared to defend herself.
Sure.
Because here's the thing. People that don't know Amy, she's this very harmless, nice,
Feeble old lady.
And little do they know, she is
Scary.
She has us rolling, and she's someone that you don't cross.
Yeah.
Or you don't say, if there's any possibility that what you said could be construed as just the least bit sexual, Amy will be the first one to sound off in class, and it just starts the 7:30
Yep.
waterfall of effect. So
It's okay.
it's she is a very unique individual, and you know what I think some of this has to do with the fact that she's got 3 daughters. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which they're going to be thrilled to hear all this, by the way.
Yes. Make sure I tag them in all this.
Yeah, it's been really cool because you've got Mallory, who's going to be a sophomore at
She's halfway through her sophomore year.
halfway through her sophomore year at Stetson, and she rows for Stetson. Mm-hmm. Then you've got Madison, who graduated from Wilmington, who swam at Wilmington, and then she also swam at Florida State. Mm-hmm. And so those are the 2 that were around the gym the most. And now we get the third. We get Mackenzie around, and it's fun to watch her get involved in the mix. And the dynamic is very interesting because all 3 girls are different and unique in their own way. And then you've got the mama hen who is just pulling all the strings. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Now, are they all? Do you have an empty house right now? Because this is to set this up. Amy moved into this new neighborhood, and I guess that was. I'm trying to think of when we moved in there. It was probably a year.
April will be 2 years.
And we talked about, man, she's going to have the house to herself. And then it's just one after the next. She's had house guest after house guest after house guest, kids. And it's like, I
was going to be an empty nester, and then COVID, and then I had everybody with me. I downsized into this tiny house compared to what I was used to, and then had everybody back with me. And then COVID settled down, kids went to school, and then she's going to listen to this, so we love Aunt Nancy, but Aunt Nancy moved in for a couple of weeks, and then, I don't know, 4.5 months later, she moved out, but before she could move out, Mallory came back from school, so Mallory's home for Christmas, but then she leaves next week, and I will be an empty nester again until
something else happens. Until Philip moves in.
That's right, yeah.
Well, and for a brief moment when I was an empty nester, Spencer was looking for somewhere to live. And I was like, well, if you need somewhere. And my boyfriend was like, can you not just stop inviting people to live here?
Oh, my God.
Spencer would be a great house guest, though,
They would.
if you think about it, you know? Oh man. So I just, for some reason, I find that it's just evolved into one thing after the next. And I just remember the conversation of Amy saying, man, it's going to be nice. I kind of get my place to myself. And it's just the pandemic hit and oh man, it's great. So, okay. So let's talk about PT because here's the cool thing. You were never supposed to be we were going to put you as a group class coach. That was where I thought you were going to excel. That was where I thought your sweet spot was going to be. And I don't necessarily know, I can't put my finger on exactly when the transition took place. Like I know we gave you a couple clients just to see kind of how you liked it. And then all of a sudden, everybody was going with Amy. Everybody wanted Amy.
Yeah.
And now,
Probably because of all the comments.
obviously, for the interactions.
If I picked up a trainer here, it'd definitely be Amy.
Yeah, and it's such an interesting thing because for people that don't understand how many sessions 1,000 PT sessions is in a year,
That's a ton.
it is a ton. So I did I got my human calculator, Phil here. So 1,000 divided by 12 is roughly
20 something.
okay, 80 something around there, 80 a
A
month.
week. A week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that would
Yeah,
be
you're right.
That would be that would be
I was going
1,000.
on a week last.
That would be 1,000 divided by 52.
10
but,
4.
Okay. But so you break it down in 80 a month. 80 a month turns into
1,000.
1,000 or 20 a week.
Yeah.
So 20 a week, you're talking about
It's a ton.
Monday through Friday, because very rarely does she train on Saturdays. We don't train on Sundays because the gym's closed and we got the church in here. So you're talking about 5 days, 20 PT sessions a week. You're roughly 4 to 5 sessions a day. Now, before you're like, oh, well, that's not that bad. Okay. Before you say that, that's 5 hours of PT, of one-on-one PT, plus she's coaching group classes, plus she's got a program for all these sessions. So, I mean, this turns into a mountain of work that goes into this. And I would argue, I would make the generalization, because it is a generalization because I don't fully know the numbers, but I would argue, I would put Amy alone is probably doing more PT than 75% of the CrossFit gyms in the country. That's just, I'm gonna make that's a pretty bold statement, but I think I would say that's pretty accurate. Now, and to think that's crazy. So first of all, how did it, in your mind, when did it start to take off? I mean, I guess I'm confused. I look at every week. I'm like, oh, Amy did 22 sessions. Oh, Amy did 21 sessions.
Send in your numbers like, Amy, 27, Philip, 3. I'm like, oh my gosh, how did she do that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like you said there in the beginning, I think we just started, and I had I known the topic, I would have gone back and looked to see who the very first one was. But, I think it was probably somebody just new to the gym. It was probably like, I don't know, Vomsy or one of my originals.
You do have a certain demographic that has gravitated towards you. Can we talk about that?
Well, my previous demographic or right now?
Your previous demographic.
I seem to do very well with Indian men.
And it was like, once she got one, it was almost like they just kept coming. And it wasn't, they were all unconnected. They weren't, related. They weren't, it was
They didn't
just
talk about me in their neighborhoods.
No, it was just they just came. And for some reason, Amy was able to connect with them, and that's how this thing took off. And it just kind of evolved from there to where people just enjoyed. I don't know. Do you think it's the interaction? What do you think it is?
I do. I mean, I think a lot of it is, and Philip can agree with this, and I mean, I know you did PT for a while too. A lot of it is, I don't want to say a counseling session because we work hard, but a lot of it is talking. And whether it's probably the combination of, I did work in the education field before doing this, then I've got the kids, then, was married, and I just think, even though we're all different backgrounds, I seem to have a lot in common with different people for various reasons, You
check the box with a lot of people's situations too.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, we work hard, but we spend time talking a good bit and just, kind of finding connections with the people. And I enjoy it. I mean, some days, it's certainly difficult. If Mondays especially, I open and go from 5 until 1 and might have a 15-minute break. But I enjoy it, and it's nice that I have the connections. I got a different connection with each of them for a different reason, but
I think I see Amy down there, a lot of her clients, she has a good mix of like, they're having fun, but they're also working hard. If she just crushed them for an hour, they're probably not going to enjoy that or look for somebody else. But she's really good at like, have a little bit of fun. Okay, now it's time to work. A little bit of fun. There's that mix, and people enjoy that.
Yeah.
And we obviously work their sessions around their schedule, but lately we've strategically placed, because what was my niche is now different. My niche is now kind of my age, middle-aged women. We talk about hormones. We schedule some of our sessions now around the time that Philip and Brent and Nate and Spencer are working out on Tuesdays, ladies. And they don't flinch when we ask them to. Margie and I will ask them to take their shirts off, and they oblige.
So I've learned a long time ago that look, we're going to do whatever we can to sell some things around here at Vitality. Right. If that means that some of my coaches got to take their shirt off, and so be it.
It's no mistake that Margie switched from Mondays to Tuesdays. It's not a coincidence.
And Margie
Tuesday, if people don't know, that's bodybuilding days.
Yeah.
That's right.
And Margie is how old?
She will be 71.
And I think that's the piece that a lot of people mismanage in fitness is the fun part of it. And I think if you can make it fun for people, and you can laugh and interact with a group of people while you're doing it, man, it just changes the whole dynamic of it. Versus if you come in straight business for an hour and it's like, okay, well, we don't have any time to talk because we've got just this amount of time allotted for this part of it. Where, I think Amy does a really good job of fitting in the work that she has to get in there, but then connecting at a level that wants them to come back for more.
Well, and I think it helps too, and this is, speaks to the whole gym. Regardless of which client I have or Philip has, when my clients are back there, when they come back, the other trainers know them. They call them by name. They banter with them as well. So, I mean, the fun component certainly, it's not just me, it's the whole vibe back there.
Now, how do you handle the time management part of it? When do you program? When do you do it at home? Do you do it, like, how much time do you have to put into it?
I do some at home. I'm probably going to shoot myself in the foot for saying this, but on Thursdays, when Laura has her day off, I sit up front and manage the desk for the onslaught of phone calls that we have, and I get a lot done when I'm sitting up there. So I usually get the majority of it done on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Just, me, I got my schedule. I try to get most of it done on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then just fine tune things on Sunday.
How far ahead will you program for your?
I just go a week at a time.
So when you're doing Thursday, you're doing the next week.
For the next three sessions, if they're a 3-day a week.
Yeah. Now, and you have a good mix of all of those, 3 days a week, 2 days a week, one time a week?
I've got some that are one time a week. I have, Bobby and Kim, they come once every other week. It just depends.
There's something we talked about a long time ago about finding your niche with, if you can find your niche, that's when people become really successful. And I think Amy's found that we thought her niche was kind of like the middle-aged Indian population, but then she realized, okay, well, wait a second, middle-aged females too. I think her niche has gotten a much broader and bigger over the last 2 years, and I think that has had certainly a lot to do with the numbers, because when Nate will sell a PT client, we look at, okay, who are they going to mesh with? Man, the majority of the time we're like, gosh, not Philip, probably probably Amy. And we've got there's 8 trainers that we have, and Amy by far year end is she's about 150 above the next one. So it's a crazy number. But I also think that burnout is a real thing. And how do you think you've avoided that over a year of nearly 1,000 PT sessions?
Well, I think part of it is I want to pay my mortgage. So, I'll just do what I need to do. No, and I mean, I know it sounds corny, but I mean, I love what I do. I mean, certainly there are days when, I'm tired and, that day's going to be harder than another one. But, I think as long as I manage my time and make sure that, I have time for myself and time to do something workout wise, I don't want to say don't get burnout, but I think too, and you've said this in our coaches meetings before, sometimes you don't mesh with people. And, if there's a session that I'm not enjoying, maybe that person and I shouldn't be working together. But I haven't found that. Like I genuinely enjoy the clients. And, I think as long as I manage my time, I think it's doable. Could I, do 30 a week? Probably not. But
you think, I would say that 20 a week is about what I think is the threshold for the majority of people. But I think you being, what's the word I'm looking for? A little more mature, not old.
He's afraid to call me old.
Wise. Being 50, I think you have a much better understanding of how this works than someone that's, I don't necessarily think that a 25 or 30-year-old may be able to manage that many classes.
And I think probably also because I don't have little kids at home. Brent's got to worry about, a wife and kids. I have the freedom to, be here till, 5 a.m, or if I need to come back and be here at 7 o'clock at night, I can do it just because I don't have anything but my dogs and cats.
Philip doesn't have a whole lot other than Morgan and his mutt too, so he doesn't have a whole lot of commitments either.
Yeah, I don't either. Yeah.
So, but how come you're not here from 5 a.m. until 8 o'clock at night like Amy?
I usually am. You're just already asleep.
There's very few days. So, with that type of schedule, what is your normal wake up time?
4.
I think it's hilarious when I see Joe Martino.
Oh, it's terrible.
And Joe has to work or something, and he's like, "Oh man, let's do 6 today."
Gosh.
And it makes me so happy because I know that Philip has to get up earlier than he wants to. But you're saying 4 o'clock is your normal wake up time?
Yeah, but I think I've been programmed through all the years of swimming, and I got up at 4 in middle school to go swim before school. So I think my body is just because my mother's the same way. Philip had the pleasure of meeting my mother.
Her mother's awesome.
Well, at 85, she still gets up at 5 and walks, and she cuts her own grass and pulls weeds. I'm trying to get her to move up here. She doesn't want to move up here because she won't have a yard.
Will she live with you?
So
here we go.
Me, Amy,
this
and
is
Amy's
going to be
mom.
the greatest.
No.
Amy's going to be an empty nester for approximately 2 weeks.
No, my mom has even said, my mother and I have a great relationship, but she said we shouldn't live together. So we've talked about the retirement community that I go to work with Gloria.
The one you live at? Did someone... What?
He didn't ask. Yes.
What did he ask you?
I think he asked me if I lived there. I think he just was hitting on me, but whatever. Anyway, that's a whole nother subject.
So now, when you went there, you go. This is another thing that Amy will find herself in situations that just don't happen to other people. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
No one's ever asked Philip to go program for somebody at a retirement community. It just happened to be that. And then, so Amy got a client. She's
88.
She's 88, and you go there
Mondays and Wednesdays.
And Wednesdays.
Yeah.
And while you were there, you have to be how old to be at this retirement community?
62.
62. Somebody hit on you and said,
"Oh, do you live here? How long have you lived here?" And I looked at him. I was like, "Do I live here?" And after the fact, I was like, I should have told him, yes, I'm 75, And the other boys, Nate and them, they were joking. They're like, he was probably walking around knocking on doors, looking to see, looking to see where you are. Yeah. So I would like for my mother to move there, but she does not want to spend the money.
Okay.
So the other option is, do I move again to something bigger that has a separate quarters?
Yeah. Like a wing for her.
Yeah. But again, she's 85 and still driving. She has friends that she goes drinking with after church, and she doesn't want to come up here yet.
Are you catching a glimpse of what Amy's going to be like
Yes.
85 yet?
Yes.
Okay.
I caught that really quick when I met her mom.
Yeah.
I took a picture of her last Christmas and sent it to Laura. She was putting away dishes and she was down lunging, like literally lunging in my kitchen. And I said, God, I hope I'm like this woman at 84.
I think that the interesting dynamic is I don't know if you would have told me 12 years ago that I would have someone like Amy that is so heavily involved in what we do here at the gym. I wouldn't have thought that. You don't really associate, not that 50 is old by any stretch, because it's not. I do believe that, how we view age is much different than how when we were kids we viewed age. And I think my parents' generation, 50 years old is different than what Amy's 50 years old is. But still, you think of the fitness world and you think of a little younger demographic, and Amy's been able to break into this. And now I remember the first time we sat in a PT meeting, and Amy had beaten Brent and Agnew and Lambert in the weekly numbers. And Agnew looked at me and was like, "Man, I gotta figure this out. I'm getting beat by Amy." And now I don't think anyone's touched Amy's number in 9 months, right? 10 months, 11 months. So, when you look at this and you say, what makes her so good at it? It's not, I don't think she has any more knowledge than anybody else. Everyone's got the same level playing field when it comes to, her workouts aren't super complex and crazy and, any more well thought out than anybody else's. It's just the ability to relate to people. And I think Amy's life experiences has given her this advantage to where she can relate to so many different people because she's been through a ton. And at 50 years old, you think about it, my daughter being at age 8, what has she experienced? Yeah. Nothing, right? Man, 50 years of raising 3 kids, taking care of family and all this type of stuff. Man, there's a level of connection that is hard to recreate there. And I think that has a lot to do with it. But
well, we won't say his name, but then, the occasional, when I go to hand my Indian client the slam ball and he accidentally touches my breast, that helps keep him around too.
Amy's got her tricks of the trade, he
was more, I was like, it's okay. He's like, I didn't do it on purpose. I'm like, it's okay.
Philip's been trying to do that for the last year.
Know, what the crap?
And he can't figure it out, but the Indian client figures it out. And yeah.
Me and Amy have PT tomorrow.
Well, and for the viewers out there, Philip and I have a little different dynamic relationship, and Philip sends me a text about this with this little meme, and it says, "Hey baby girl, we need to talk." And I was like, oh, where's this going? Boy. What do you want, Philip?
Amy's like our on-staff counselor, but if I was to pick who I'd want to counsel my younger male employees, it would be anybody but Amy. But yet at the front desk, she talks about on Thursdays, she's got Agnew and Spencer, and they're just on the edge of their seat listening to whatever. They're having these deep conversations, and I'm just sitting there like, holy cow. How, where is this going to go? What are we going to talk about?
Listen, especially Spencer.
It's good for Spencer. He needs that.
Yes, Spencer needs, and I can be appropriate when I need to. But like that first big competition Spencer went to when he was flying, the poor kid didn't even know about travel size liquids, and he needed a suitcase. And I was like, Spencer, I'll bring you a suitcase. He ended up finding another one, but I was like, at the grocery store, those little, you'll see the area with the small little shampoos and toothpaste. He's like, yeah. I'm like, those are for this. Like, you can't take more than 3 ounces. So I'm teaching them real things
life
too,
lessons.
not just other things.
It's a mix. It's a mix. Right. Do you think that in your mind that this will sustain for 2022? Do you think that do you see anything changing for you in 22?
No. Unless I win the lottery. Then, no.
I will go from 3 PT clients to 30. I take all.
What would be the first thing you would buy if you won the lottery?
Oh, gosh. I'd probably get rid of my car.
Yeah. What kind of car would you get?
I mean, my car is okay. Well, see, here's the problem. So for 17 years, I had a Suburban. I had 4 different Suburbans. I would just it was always black, just changed the interior. Then I got this other car. Not that there's anything wrong with it. It's a little Toyota RAV4. But to this day, I still feel like it's a clown car. So even though I don't need a Suburban, I would probably go back to a
You'd
Suburban.
go back to a Suburban?
Heck yeah.
No wonder you're not an empty nester. You got a vehicle that takes
school bus.
17 people around with you. What would you buy if you won the lottery first thing?
God, man. Probably a G-Wagon or
Yeah.
or Lambo. For a car or just in general?
In general.
Oh, in general, I'd pay off anything I own
Oh,
and
yeah.
then invest some of it and buy a house.
Where would you buy your house at?
Your neighborhood.
Yeah, that's right beside you. Your backyard. Probably your fire pit we cleared the 6 acres. There's plenty of room out there for a tiny house.
Oh, man.
Oh, you wouldn't need a tiny house.
That's true. Not in that place.
So 2022, nothing really changes. You know, the majority of your clients, if you had to guess, how long have they been with you?
Oh, gosh.
More than 6 months?
Oh, yeah.
More than
Yeah.
9 months?
Yeah, and then even like some of my ladies, Sandy's been 2.5 years, Mabel and Margie like 3 years.
How long did it take you before you kind of got comfortable? I mean, I shouldn't say comfortable, but how long did it take you to get into a routine of this is how I structured things? This is how I'm sure it's now like, man, it's clockwork, whether, you know how to set your schedule up, you know how to program for everybody. How long did that process take to build that confidence and build that structure?
I mean, it wasn't that long just because a couple of them are so similar. Like those ladies are all pretty much have the same goals. So, I mean, after a couple weeks, it changed a little bit. Like when I would just have Mabel and then when I'd have Mabel and Margie together because Margie was traveling. So that took some, time management shifting, but just a couple weeks.
I think it's hard for people to see the light at the end of the tunnel when you think about starting a PT business or a new coach is trying to build his or her PT business. It's tough because the beginning is hard. I mean, it's hard to get the first couple people, and then you kind of got to figure out how you're going to handle that, and then you got to figure out how to build your schedule around it. Then you got to figure out, what your programming routines are going to be, and it just takes that. It takes time to develop that, and I think people they get lost in those first maybe 60 to 90 days, and they lose interest because it's hard in the beginning because you're trying to, you've got like you on Mondays, you're going from 5 a.m. until 1 p.m. But what that does for you is I'm sure it opens up later on in the week where,
So for me, and I've said this over and over, I'll work 14-hour days, Monday through Thursday, because on Fridays, usually I go to Gloria at noon at my soon-to-be home, the retirement community. And on Fridays, I'm usually done at 12:45.
Yeah.
Done for the day.
Yeah. And I think that, some people, if they can be disciplined early in their week, they build those sessions in strong and early in the week, they can have some flexibility later on where, you get to have a kind of a 3-day weekend at some points and maybe some smaller commitments during the week.
Yeah. And I mean, and the sessions change too. Like there for a while, a couple of my ladies just wanted to strength train, and then they noticed, that they felt, just a little different. So then we tossed Metcons back in. So, there's some certainly, you have to be flexible with that too, just because with as much money as they're paying, you got to go with what they want to do. So change it up.
It's definitely interesting to see. I love, I love being surprised by it. Not that I didn't think you'd be good at it years ago. I just didn't think if you had told me you were going to have 1,000 PT sessions, if I was going to have someone that was going to have 1,000 PT sessions, you thought it'd be somebody that, kind of had started from scratch, like, hey, this is what I want to do, whatever. I don't think your overall goal in the beginning was to be this heavy of a personal training focus. And it's just, you've adapted to it really well. And I think it's because your personality, I think it's because people enjoy being around you and talking to you. And, the banter is certainly worth the price of admission for sure.
Well, and I don't know if you remember. So I started here just as a member, regular member. I wanted to do this to supplement my swimming. And then as things changed in my life, I was thinking about going back to work. I used to be a special education teacher. So I had come to you, and at the time, it was at the old gym where the 5 a.m. class, like if you did not sign up 2 weeks ahead of time, you were on the wait list. And we used to be really strict about that. If you were on the wait list, you didn't show up. So I went to you and I said, I think I'm going to go back to work, either part-time, full-time, whatever. I said, but I am going to have to come at 5 a.m. And, you have to promise me that I'm going to be able to get into these classes. Like I can't miss a workout. And you're like, well, why are you going back to work? And I was like, well, this, that, and the other. And you're like, well, why don't you just work here? You're here all the time anyway. Why don't you just work here? So that's kind of, where it started. And, I obviously love fitness, have been involved with it my entire life, but it's certainly not where I thought I would end up.
Yeah. You think it's pretty different from the old days of the old gym? What do you think the biggest differences are? Because you were, what year do you think you started?
Oh gosh, it was probably 2012.
I was going to say 12. So that's about 9 years.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's changed a lot for me just from the standpoint of, because I used to be in class all the time. Mm-hmm. And, Kim Vincent and I were joking about this last night. Like we were lunatics, we were all so competitive and, in a friendly way, really competitive, that sort of thing. And now that we're much older, it's like, okay, I just want to get through this workout today. I only have 20 minutes. I want to get through it. So I think because my life has changed, it's a different tone for me in there for sure. And it's fun to watch the new people that are where I was back then. But
it's definitely different because you think about, Amy was 40 years old then, and now this is what you run into when you've been an affiliate for 12 years is you get people that are at a completely different point in their life where, man, the way that they attack the workout at 38 to 40 is different than the way they're going to attack a workout at 50 to 52 or 54. And that's kind of where we're at now is when people first started, the Benhams are another example of that. Yeah. They started when they were, 33, 34 years old, and now they're 44, maybe 45. It's a completely different dynamic that you're going to get with people. And if you don't evolve with that like they have, Jason Benham was one of the most competitive guys on the planet 12 years ago. Yeah. Well, now he knows that his quality of life is tied to how he feels when he leaves the gym. So he, maybe once every 5 or 6 weeks, he'll go all in a workout and he'll pay for it. But he knows, like you, that, man, if I go out and run right now or whatever, I'm going to be limping for the next, 3-4 days. So we just get smarter with it and we evolve with it. And again, that comes back to you understanding your clients a little bit better because it's tough. Spencer's really, really good at PT, at group classes, all that. But again, he's never had to deal with the things that you've had to deal with from your body's perspective. Right. At 22 or 23, his leg can fall off today. He just puts some super glue on that thing, puts it back together, and by tomorrow he's good.
Back, yeah.
If I step wrong off of a curb, I'm like, gosh dang it, I'm done for like 3 days,
Well, I have said to you before with all these little things that you've had happening, like I don't wish ill will on him, but I'm like, okay, you are now at the age that I was at when I started. I said, now you can understand a little bit these different aches and pains, which, the whole thing with PT, one of my favorite, and I don't know if you remember this either, but before I was working, like I said, I did this to supplement swimming. And I had this stupid idea that, before nationals, I think I should do personal training with Steve.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. So the very first, I think we did 2 days a week for the 12 weeks leading up to nationals. So the very first session, I'm driving there and I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, why am I doing this? So 2 days a week, 12 weeks, we do this. And then, we taper and everything. And I'm getting ready to leave the next day. And at the time, they were live streaming and all that. And you said to me, okay, keep me posted on the schedule. Let me know how you're doing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't care how I do. And he's like, what do you mean you don't care? And I said, I had 2 goals for this. I said, I didn't want to throw up and I didn't want you to see me cry. And it didn't happen. So I don't care how I do it to me.
I still have those workouts and they were brutal. There were some nasty workouts that we did.
And I don't remember, but there was one where, it was X number of rounds, 3 rounds, and I had to be at a certain, time. And on the very last one, you're like, if you don't hit such and such a time, we got to do another round. And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. And I didn't hit the time. And then we had to do another round. It's like, but I will tell you what, that year, 200 free, man, that last lap, all I kept thinking in my head was nobody else did this assault bike for 12 weeks. Like, oh, God.
Yeah, I think, I think the thing that I've always liked the most is most of my coaches, almost all of them have come from a class setting to where they were members first. And I got to see how everybody reacted, how they responded, how they handled the workouts and all that type of stuff. And it's so much easier. I've said it for 12 years that the best interview for a job is right out there, because you can't hide from it. There's no replacement to, counting your reps correctly, just being an overall decent person when your heart rate's at 190 and not saying dumb stuff and being disrespectful to people. And what people don't understand is there's not a ton of people that are able to do that. You get a lot of people that, they when it's on the line, they'll count by 2s or they'll shorten their range of motion or whatever it is because they're so concerned with where they finish. And I think when you can see people, that's a whole nother podcast. Yeah, it is. But my point being is, when I got to train Amy for almost 2 years of PT, and you get to see how people react, and when you get to see that, it's very hard for someone to change their stripes. Like when you see how they respond in a workout, they're not going to be a different person outside that workout. And that goes both ways. If Philip was somebody that, was yelling and screaming at Spencer in a workout before you got hired here, you wouldn't be able to be the type of person you are with people, outside of those workouts. And the same thing goes, like since you were that person that Philip's the guy that can talk to anybody, he can work out with anybody, he just goes with the flow, and that transitions over into his other everyday life. And that's where, we've been really lucky to have people that can mesh. Like, because you think about it, you and Philip have completely different backgrounds, but yet you guys get along so well. And it's not because anything other than the fact that you guys are just good people, and if you have a bunch of people like that, it makes it very easy. And I think if you had the wrong people in here, people like Philip would, be envious, or they wouldn't want to see you do as well as you do on the PT side, because he's like, well, man, I wish I had that many clients, or I wish, I was able to do what Amy does. Must be nice. Instead, he's talking and encouraging your clients, and you guys are having that banter back and forth, and that's what creates this culture that it makes people want to be a part of it. So I think a lot of the clients that we have, they just enjoy being a part of the culture that we have here, and that starts with the coaches that we've got. And now you've got this whole nother dynamic with Laura and the baby, which is going to be, now you've got Amy as a grandmother, which is going to be amazing.
Listen, I got texted this morning. I'm on babysitting duty for her next hair appointment.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. There we go. So yeah, I think this is great for people that are listening to understand that, 1,000 PT sessions should be the upper end of what's possible. Every gym I do consulting with, I try and explain to them that, PT is the missing link 99% of the time. If you don't have a strong PT program, you're missing a ton of opportunity. But with that, you've got to have the people that in place that are able to handle that, the volume. And we just have been very fortunate to have people like Amy that can handle 1,000 PT sessions. And hopefully, we'll see what next year looks like, but maybe we can get Philip over 100, we'll see what happens,
And she still has time to work out with all that. That's what's great. Like people's like, I don't have time. I'm like, Amy has 1,000 PT sessions, 3 daughters, all this stuff going on, and she still works out. I'll see her in the 7:30 class almost every day.
Yep.
I'm like, you got time to work out.
Yep.
You just don't
And people
want
that
to.
say they don't have time, or people that say they've got injuries, no one's working around as many injuries as Amy, you know? I used to like put my arm around her and walk her in class. Now I'm afraid to do that because I'm like, wait a second, I don't
What's
know
hurting?
what's hurting today, you know?
And there's a fine line between, like, the athlete I was to where I am now. But, on the one hand, he'll come up to me and he'll be like, how's everything feel today? You're okay? And I'm like, oh, that's good. He's making sure I don't do anything stupid. But on the other hand, I'm like, I'm not that old. Like, But then I'm like, well, I do have this and this and this.
Actually, I'm kind of glad he asked. Everything's getting hurting now.
So great. I appreciate you coming on here, Amy. This has been good. We'll do a follow-up. Maybe one of these times when Grandma Amy's got Henry, we'll have
sweet.
We'll have a little Henry podcast with.
What if we just have Amy and her mom on a podcast?
Oh yeah. Oh
That'd be
man.
good.
I would love to hear some
That would be
stories about
fun.
Amy. Can you imagine her as a?
Oh, it'd be so good.
Oh my goodness.
No, listen, I've again, whole nother podcast. I was a good kid. I made great grades, swam, but I was like did
Trouble.
some stuff.
That's not hard for me to picture.
I believe that.
Yeah. And I'll leave you with this. Amy is the type of person that it doesn't matter who comes into this gym. It doesn't matter. It could be a kid, an 18-year-old high school kid. It could be a 90-year-old grandpa. Somewhere along the line, Amy has crossed paths with this person.
Oh.
And they'll be like, oh yeah, I know Amy Holland. I said, of course you do. And now it's just a joke where someone will come in and Amy will be like, hard to believe, I know, but yeah, I taught his son. Yeah, it's like everybody in this gym is connected somehow to Amy Holland.
That's good.
I get two guys that call me out of the blue from Murphy, North Carolina. I said, I wonder if Amy knows these guys. Amy runs into them and knows everything about their whole families. Oh my
They're
gosh.
best friends with a cousin. that
Yeah,
lives in
it's
Murphy.
just Amy's that person that just knows everybody. But who that has that ability to do that? Someone that is super genuine and nice, and some a-hole isn't going to know a lot of people, right?
No, yeah.
Right.
They're not going to. Nobody's going to want to know them. They don't want to know anybody.
Exactly.
Yeah. They
But
stick to
someone
themselves.
someone that's super outgoing and energetic and nice, and they all of a sudden have all these connections because they take just that extra time to sit,
And if you're
to be nice to
likable, people want to know it. They'll
Yep.
want to know Amy.
I can give you a list of people that would probably say otherwise if you would like to do a podcast with
That would be
them.
fun. That maybe next time.
Oh my God.
All right. Well, thank you, Amy. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's good.
Guys, until next time, this is the Built by Vitality podcast.